The silence in the command center of the Zephyrian research vessel Luminous Dawn was broken only by the soft hum of failing life support systems. Captain Veltar pressed her four-fingered hands against the crystalline control surface, watching the last functional display flicker between warning signals. The elegant curves of her ship's bioorganic hull, once a thing of beauty among the stars, now showed ugly fractures that leaked precious atmosphere into the cold void. "How long do we have?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would not bring comfort. Her engineer Kostal looked up from his diagnostic panel. His usually bright purple skin had faded to a sickly gray. 6 hours, maybe 7 if we shut down all non-essential systems. The quantum drive overload damaged more than just propulsion. We lost main power, backup generators, and half our atmospheric processors. Veltar nodded slowly. The stellar phenomenon they had been studying had proven more dangerous than their calculations predicted. What should have been a routine research mission into unusual gravitational waves had become a death sentence when the readings spiked beyond their equipment's ability to measure. The ship's quantum drive had overloaded trying to escape the effect, leaving them stranded between star systems with no way to call for help, or so she had thought. "Captain," her communications officer Yilna spoke up from her station. "The emergency transmitter is still functional. We could send a distress signal." Veltar considered this. The major powers of the galaxy all had established protocols for distress calls. The calculating hegemony would receive the message and begin their formal review process, which could take weeks. Their bureaucratic nature meant every rescue had to be approved by multiple committees. The isolationist Eternal Collective might acknowledge the signal, but rarely involve themselves in the affairs of other species. The Federation of Allied Worlds was more helpful, but their rescue operations required extensive documentation and risk assessment before any ships would be dispatched. "It is worth trying," she decided. "Compose a standard emergency broadcast. Include our coordinates, species identification, crew count, and current status. Also add a warning about the gravitational anomaly that damaged our ship. Other vessels should know to avoid this area." Yilna's fingers moved across her console with practiced efficiency. "Message composed, Captain. Broadcasting on all emergency frequencies." The message went out into the void. It carried their location, their desperate situation, and a plea for anyone who might hear it to send help. Veltar knew that if help came at all, it would likely arrive too late. The galaxy was a cold place, governed by rules and procedures that valued caution over speed. "How long until someone might respond?" asked Turnix, the youngest member of her crew. "If the hegemony picks up our signal, they will need at least 12 days to process our request through their committees," Veltar explained gently. "The Federation will want detailed scans of our ship and crew before they commit resources. That could take 8 to 10 days. The collective—" She shrugged, a gesture that showed her doubt. The crew fell silent. Everyone understood what she was not saying. They had perhaps 7 hours of life support remaining. Even the fastest response would come far too late. Veltar was about to order power conservation measures when Yilna suddenly straightened at her station. "Captain, we have a response." "Already?" Veltar moved to the communication station. "From whom?" "Unknown species, Captain. They identify themselves as humans, from something called the Sol system. I'm not familiar with either designation." Veltar frowned. In her years of service, she had dealt with most of the known species in this part of the galaxy. She had never heard of humans or a Sol system. "What do they say?" Yilna read from her display. "Message received. Help is coming. Hold on." She looked up at her captain. "That is the entire message. That is all? No request for additional information? No questions about payment or territorial agreements? No risk assessment requirements?" "Nothing, Captain. Just that help is coming." Veltar stared at the message display. In all her experience with galactic politics and emergency protocols, she had never encountered such a simple, direct response. No species she knew would commit to a rescue operation without extensive preliminary negotiations. "Run a scan of our databases," she ordered. "Find everything we have on these humans and their Sol system." Kostal worked at his station for several minutes before shaking his head. "Nothing in our main database, Captain. No diplomatic records, no trade agreements, no contact reports. If these humans exist, they are completely unknown to our civilization. Check the restricted databases. Military intelligence, threat assessment files, anything classified." More searching produced the same result. The humans appeared to exist in no official records of any kind. Perhaps they are a new species, suggested Turnix. Recently achieved spaceflight? Possibly, Veltar said, though she felt doubt. The response had come too quickly and with too much confidence for a newly spacefaring species. Can you trace the origin of their transmission? Yelna adjusted her controls. Signal originated from a system approximately 47 light-years from here. But Captain, there is something strange about their transmission method. The signal shows signs of faster-than-light communication technology, but it uses protocols I do not recognize. Whoever these humans are, their technology is different from anything in our databases. The implications of this discovery sent a chill through the bridge crew. An unknown species with advanced communication technology had somehow intercepted their emergency signal and responded within minutes. In a galaxy where first contact protocols could take years to establish, this was unprecedented. Captain, Kostal said quietly, should we be concerned? An unknown species responding so quickly to our distress call? It could be a trap. Veltar considered this possibility. Pirates and raiders sometimes monitored emergency frequencies, hoping to find easy targets. But something about the simple, direct message felt different. There had been no demands, no questions about their cargo or defensive capabilities. Just a promise that help was coming. We have little choice, she said finally. If these humans mean us harm, we are already helpless to stop them. If they truly intend to help, she gestured at the failing systems around them. We may have found the only species in the galaxy willing to attempt a rescue without first conducting a month-long bureaucratic review. As if to emphasize her point, another warning signal chimed from the environmental controls. Life support was failing faster than their estimates had predicted. Send a response, Veltar ordered. Thank them for their quick reply and provide our current life support status. If they are genuine in their offer to help, they need to know how little time we have. The message was sent, carrying with it the desperate hope of 12 Zephyrian souls stranded in the dark between the stars. As the crew settled in to wait, Veltar found herself wondering what manner of beings these humans might be. In a galaxy where helping strangers was considered foolish and dangerous, what kind of species would risk everything for people they had never met? She would soon find out. Captain Sarah Chen was making her third cup of coffee when the emergency signal crackled through the communication system of her cargo hauler, Defiant Spirit. The ship was 3 days out from Mars hauling mining equipment to the outer colonies when the alien distress call changed everything. Marcus, get up here, she called to her engineer. We've got something you need to hear. Marcus Webb climbed up from the engine compartment, grease stains on his coveralls and a concerned look on his weathered face. What's the problem, Sarah? Listen to this. Sarah played back the distress signal. The alien voice spoke in their own language, but the universal translation software built into every human ship provided subtitles on the screen. The message was clear. 12 beings stranded between star systems. Life support failing, requesting immediate assistance. Marcus whistled low. First contact situation? Looks like it. And they're dying. Sarah was already pulling up star charts on her navigation display. Look at these coordinates. Marcus studied the location and his face went pale. Sarah, that's in the Maelstrom Zone, the area where space itself goes crazy. Nobody goes there on purpose. The Maelstrom Zone was well known to human space crews. It was a region where quantum storms created dangerous tears in space-time itself. Ships that entered the zone sometimes disappeared entirely. Others emerged with their crews aged decades in mere hours, or with parts of their vessels existing in different time streams simultaneously. I know, Sarah said quietly, but we're the closest ship. Look at this. She brought up a tactical display showing all known vessels in the surrounding systems. The nearest other ship is 8 hours away, and that's a light courier with no rescue equipment. Everyone else is days out. What about official rescue services? Surely someone has contacted the authorities. Sarah shook her head. This signal went out on emergency frequencies. It's being received by everyone in this part of space. But Marcus, these aren't human emergency frequencies. This is some kind of galactic standard that our equipment just happens to be compatible with. So other alien species are getting this too? Probably. And if they follow the same kind of bureaucratic procedures that human governments do for first contact situations, it could be weeks before anyone official responds. Sarah called up the crew roster on her screen. We have 6 people aboard. This alien ship has 12. We can make room. Marcus stared at her. Sarah, you're talking about flying into the most dangerous region of space to rescue aliens we've never met, using procedures we've never tested, with a cargo ship that wasn't designed for this kind of operation. Yes. And if we mess this up, we all die horribly in a quantum storm. Also yes. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he grinned. Well, when you put it like that, how can I say no? Let me get the emergency docking gear ready. Within 20 minutes, Sarah had contacted her crew and explained the situation. The response was immediate and unanimous. Dr. Elena Vasquez, their medical officer, began preparing the sick bay for unknown alien physiology. Pilot Tom Rodriguez started calculating jump coordinates for the Maelstrom zone. Engineer Lisa Park began modifying their life support systems to handle different atmospheric requirements. Captain, said Communications Officer David Kim, I've sent a response to their distress call. Just told them help is coming and to hold on. Good. Any other responses to their signal? David checked his instruments. 3 so far. 1 from something called the Hegemony, acknowledging receipt and beginning formal review process estimated to take 12 days. Another from the Federation of Allied Worlds requesting detailed biological and technological specifications, and a third from the Eternal Collective noting their plight. 12 days for a rescue review? Sarah shook her head in disbelief. Tom, how long to reach their coordinates? If I push our FTL drive past safety limits and use a direct route through the edge of the Maelstrom zone, 4 hours. But Sarah, those safety limits exist for a reason. We could lose containment on the quantum field and end up scattered across 3 dimensions. How long if we take the safe route? 7 hours minimum. Sarah did the math in her head. The aliens had said their life support was failing. 7 hours might be too late. Take the risky route. But be ready to drop out of FTL the moment anything looks wrong. You got it, Captain. As the Defiant Spirit prepared to jump into hyperspace, Sarah monitored the continued responses to the alien distress call. More messages arrived from various galactic powers, all following the same pattern: formal acknowledgement, requests for additional information, and promises to begin lengthy evaluation processes. It's like they're more concerned with paperwork than saving lives, Lisa muttered as she worked on the atmospheric processors. Different cultures, different priorities, Dr. Vasquez said diplomatically. Maybe they have good reasons for being cautious. Maybe, Sarah said. But those people are going to be dead by the time these other species finish their committee meetings. The ship jumped to hyperspace with a vibration that felt different from normal. The FTL drive was indeed being pushed beyond its design limits. Tom constantly monitored the quantum field stability, while Marcus watched the engine temperatures climb toward dangerous levels. How are we doing? Sarah asked after an hour. Drive is holding together, Marcus reported, but we're going to need a complete overhaul after this. Maybe 2 complete overhauls. I'll worry about repair bills later. Tom, any problems with navigation? Starting to hit the edge effects of the Maelstrom zone, Tom replied, his hand steady on the controls despite the stress in his voice. Space-time is getting unstable. We might experience some temporal displacement when we drop out of hyperspace. Meaning? Meaning we might arrive before we left, or we might age a few years during the drop. The zone plays by its own rules. Sarah nodded grimly. These were the risks everyone knew about when dealing with unstable space. But knowing about them and experiencing them were 2 different things. 3 hours into their journey, they received another message from the stranded aliens. David translated it and his face went pale. Captain, their life support is failing faster than expected. They estimate 4 hours remaining, maybe less. Tom, can we go faster? We're already past the red line. Sarah. Any more and we risk a cascade failure that would leave us stranded too. Then we maintain current speed and hope for the best. The next hour passed in tense silence. Every crew member was focused on their tasks, knowing that 12 lives depended on their success. The ship shuddered occasionally as quantum storms buffeted their hyperspace field, but Tom's skilled piloting kept them on course. Approaching drop point, Tom announced. Everyone brace for temporal displacement. The Defiant Spirit dropped out of hyperspace with a violent lurch that threw everyone against their restraints. The main lights flickered and several alarms began blaring. Through the viewports, space itself looked wrong. Stars seemed to bend and twist, and patches of absolute darkness drifted past like solid objects. Report, Sarah called out. FTL drive is offline but intact, Marcus reported. We lost some hull plating on the port side, but life support is stable. Sensors are having trouble with all this spatial distortion, David added. But I'm picking up a ship about 2 kilometers off our starboard bow. No energy readings except for minimal life support. Sarah looked through the main viewport and saw it. The alien vessel was beautiful in its own way, with flowing organic curves that looked grown rather than built. But ugly fractures ran along its crystalline hull, and it drifted helplessly in the chaotic space of the maelstrom zone. There they are, she said quietly. Tom, can you get us close enough for docking? In this spatial chaos? It'll be like trying to thread a needle during an earthquake, but I'll give it a shot. As Tom began the delicate approach, Sarah opened a communication channel. Alien vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the human ship Defiant Spirit. We received your distress call and we're here to help. Please respond. The response came quickly, transmitted in the same alien language as before. David's translation software converted it to text. Human vessel. This is Captain Veltar of the Zephyrian research ship Luminous Dawn. We did not expect anyone to come so quickly. Our situation is desperate. We understand, Captain Veltar. We're going to dock with your ship and transfer your crew to safety. Are you familiar with emergency docking procedures? There was a pause before the response came. Honored humans, we are grateful beyond words, but you must understand the danger. This region of space is unstable. Remaining here could destroy your vessel as well as ours. Sarah smiled grimly. Captain Veltar, we didn't come this far to turn back now. We're going to get you and your crew out of here, all of you. As the two ships drew closer together, the real work was about to begin. Captain Veltar had witnessed many docking procedures in her years of service, but nothing had prepared her for watching humans work. The approach of the human vessel Defiant Spirit should have been impossible in the chaotic space of the Maelstrom Zone, where gravitational fields shifted without warning, and space itself seemed to bend at random angles. Yet somehow, the human pilot was making it look routine. How are they doing that? Whispered Turnix, the youngest member of her crew, as they watched the human ship adjust its position with impossible precision. I do not know, Veltar admitted. In Zephyrian space, such a maneuver would require approval from flight control, consultation with 3 different departments, and at least 2 backup pilots standing by. The humans seemed to be making split-second decisions with no apparent oversight or procedure. The human captain's voice came through their communicator again. Captain Veltar, we're going to extend our docking tube to your main airlock. Our atmospheric compatibility is unknown, so we'll maintain pressure seals until we can test for safety. Understood, Captain Chen. But I must warn you, our hull breach has compromised the structural integrity around that airlock. A hard docking could cause catastrophic decompression. Then we'll have to be gentle. Marcus, you getting this? A different human voice responded. Copy that, Sarah. I'm rigging a soft seal emergency connector. It's never been tested on an alien ship design, but the basic physics should work. Veltar blinked in surprise. They were improvising. In the middle of a dangerous rescue operation in unstable space, these humans were creating new procedures on the spot. Every species she knew would have required months of testing and approval for such modifications. Captain Veltar, came the human voice called Marcus. Can you tell us about your atmospheric composition? We want to make sure our initial contact doesn't harm either crew. Veltar provided the information. Standard nitrogen-oxygen mix with trace elements that would be harmless to most carbon-based life forms. The humans confirmed their atmosphere was compatible and began the actual docking process. Through the viewport, she watched the human ship extend what looked like a flexible tunnel toward their damaged airlock. The device appeared to be constructed from spare parts and emergency equipment, held together with what humans apparently called duct tape. It should not have worked, but it did. The seal engaged with a soft thump that their damaged ship barely felt. Lights appeared along the tunnel and she could see figures moving inside it. Docking complete, announced Captain Chen. We're running atmosphere tests now. Should be able to open the seals in about 2 minutes. 2 minutes? Cossatel looked shocked. Standard atmospheric testing procedures require a minimum of 30 minutes for basic safety protocols. Apparently not for humans, Veltar murmured. True to their word, the humans opened the airlock seals exactly 2 minutes later. The first human to step through was a tall female with short dark hair and intense brown eyes. She wore a practical blue uniform that looked designed for work rather than ceremony. "Captain Veltar?" she asked, though her pronunciation of the Zephyrian name was imperfect. "I'm Sarah Chen. We're here to get you out." Veltar stepped forward, momentarily uncertain about proper first contact protocol. In her experience, meeting a new species required formal presentations, exchange of credentials, and careful negotiations about everything from territorial rights to trade agreements. "Captain Chen, I am Veltar of the Zephyrian Exploration Service. On behalf of my crew, I must express our gratitude for your rapid response to our distress call. However, I feel I should inform you of the formal procedures required for first contact between our species. There are diplomatic protocols that should be observed, territorial agreements that must be negotiated, and various cultural exchange requirements that—" Captain Chen held up a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "Captain Veltar, with all due respect, you said your life support is failing. People are dying. We can handle the paperwork later." The directness of this statement left Veltar speechless. In Zephyrian society, proper procedure was never set aside, even in emergencies. There were established protocols for emergency protocols. "How many crew members need immediate medical attention?" asked another human who had just entered. This one was a smaller female with kind eyes and what appeared to be medical equipment. "3 are in critical condition from atmospheric poisoning," Veltar replied automatically. "2 others have injuries from the initial accident. I'm Dr. Vasquez. Can you show me to them? I need to see what we're dealing with." As Veltar led the human doctor toward their medical bay, she noticed more humans entering her ship. They moved with purpose and efficiency, but also with a kind of controlled urgency she had never seen before. One human was scanning their life support systems with handheld devices. Another was taking readings near their hull breach. "Captain," called the human with the scanning equipment. "Their oxygen recycling system is completely shot, maybe 40 minutes of breathable air left at most." "Then we work fast," Captain Chen replied. "Marcus, can you rig a temporary life support connection?" "Already on it. Give me 15 minutes and I'll—" "Have them breathing our air supply," Veltar watched in amazement as the human called Marcus immediately began connecting portable equipment to their failing life support systems. No consultations with superiors, no requests for technical specifications, no lengthy safety reviews. He simply looked at the problem and started solving it. In the medical bay, Dr. Vasquez was examining Turnix, who had been suffering from oxygen deprivation. "His physiology is similar enough to humans that I can help," she announced. "I'm going to give him a breathing mask connected to our oxygen supply. But you do not know the long-term effects of human oxygen on Zephyrian biology," Veltar protested. "There should be tests, studies, approval from medical boards." "Captain Veltar," Dr. Vasquez said gently, "your crew member is dying. Right now, I can either try to help him with what I have, or we can watch him suffocate while we run tests. Which would you prefer?" The stark choice left Veltar speechless once again. In Zephyrian medical practice, there were always procedures to follow, even in life-threatening situations. But as she looked at Turnix's labored breathing and pale skin, she realized the humans were right. There was no time for proper procedure. "Please help him," she said quietly. Dr. Vasquez immediately placed the breathing mask over Turnix's face. Within moments, his color began to improve and his breathing became easier. The relief on his features was obvious to everyone in the room. "That's better," the doctor said with satisfaction. "Now let's look at your other injured crew members." As Dr. Vasquez moved to treat the other patients, Veltar followed Captain Chen back to the main corridor. The scene there was unlike anything she had ever witnessed. Humans were working throughout her ship, but instead of following careful procedures, they seemed to be solving problems through pure intuition and improvisation. "Captain Chen," she said carefully, "I must ask about compensation for this rescue operation. Surely your government will require payment of some kind? Resource agreements, technology exchanges, territorial concessions?" Captain Chen looked at her with genuine confusion. "Compensation? You were in trouble and asked for help. We helped. What kind of payment could possibly be worth 12 lives? But surely there must be some benefit to your species for this operation. Some advantage to be gained?" "The advantage is that 12 people don't die today," Sarah replied, as if this was the most obvious thing in the universe. "Captain Veltar, maybe our species do things differently. But where I come from, you don't charge people for rescuing them from burning buildings. The comparison made no sense to Veltar. A burning building was someone's property. A rescue operation in space involved complex jurisdictional issues, resource allocation, and potential military implications. Yet Captain Chen spoke as if the two situations were identical. Status report. Captain Chen called out. Life support connection is stable, Marcus reported. They're breathing our air now, so we've bought some time. Medical situation is improving, added Dr. Vasquez. All patients are stable. We can move them safely. Excellent. How long do we have before the space storm gets worse? The human pilot's voice came through their communicators. We're seeing increased gravitational distortions. I'd say maybe 20 minutes before this area becomes too dangerous for both ships. Then we evacuate now, Captain Chen decided. All Zephyrian crew members, please gather your essential belongings. We're transferring everyone to our ship immediately. As her crew moved to collect their personal items, Veltar found herself staring at the humans working around her. They had arrived at her ship, assessed the situation, implemented solutions, and begun evacuation procedures in less than 30 minutes. The entire operation violated every established protocol for first contact, emergency response, and interspecies relations, and it was working perfectly. Captain Chen, she said as they prepared to leave her ship forever, what your people have done here today. It will change how the galaxy thinks about emergency response. Sarah Chen smiled. We didn't do it to change anything, Captain. We did it because it was the right thing to do. As the last Zephyrian crossed through the docking tube to safety, Veltar realized she was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. For the first time, she had met the emergency session of the Galactic Council, convened within hours of the rescue reports reaching the major civilizations. In the grand chamber of the hegemony's capital world, representatives from dozens of species gathered via holographic projection to discuss what many were calling the most significant diplomatic event in centuries. The facts are simple, announced High Administrator Zorath of the Hegemony, his metallic voice echoing through the chamber. An unknown species calling themselves humans intercepted a standard emergency broadcast and mounted an immediate rescue operation without following any established protocols, without authorization, added Ambassador Trilux of the Federation of Allied Worlds, without proper risk assessment, without even determining if the distressed vessel represented a threat to galactic security. The humans completed the rescue in 4 hours, observed the Eternal Collective's representative, speaking through their mechanical translation device. Our own response teams had not yet finished their preliminary evaluation reports. The uncomfortable silence filled the chamber. Everyone present knew the standard timeline for emergency response operations. The hegemony required a minimum of 12 days for committee review and approval. The Federation demanded extensive documentation and risk analysis that typically took 8 to 10 days. Even the most efficient rescue services in known space needed at least 48 hours to mount an operation. Perhaps we should examine the communication logs, suggested Zorath. Computer, display the transcript of emergency communications regarding the Zephyrian vessel. The holographic display showed the timeline of messages. First, the Zephyrian distress call, then, within minutes, responses from major galactic powers acknowledging receipt and beginning their standard evaluation procedures. But there, logged at timestamp 1423, was a message that made several representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. Message received. Help is coming, hold on. Human vessel Defiant Spirit. No request for additional information, noted Ambassador Trilux. No risk assessment. No authorization codes. They simply responded. And then they actually did it, added another representative. While we were still forming committees to study the problem, they solved it. Computer, show the final status report from our own rescue fleet, Zorath commanded. The display changed to show a message from the Hegemony Rescue Commander. Arrived at reported coordinates. Area is empty except for a message buoy. Contents, survivors recovered and receiving medical care. They will be at New Geneva Station when you're ready to collect them. No charge. Humanity. No charge, repeated the collective representative. This is unprecedented. All rescue operations require resource allocation agreements. Where is this New Geneva Station? Asked Trilux. It appears to be a human trade hub in the Outer Rim territories. Our intelligence services have no prior records of its existence. but long-range scans confirm it is operational and heavily trafficked. So these humans have been active in our galaxy for some time, and we never noticed? It appears so. Our analysts are reviewing all communication logs for the past several years. They have found hundreds of emergency responses by human vessels, spacecraft breakdowns, medical emergencies, even pirate attacks. In every case, humans responded immediately and asked for nothing in return. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For decades, the major powers had operated under the assumption that space was too dangerous and resources too valuable for charitable rescue operations. Emergency response was a government function that required careful planning, resource allocation, and political approval. But apparently, humans had been quietly rescuing anyone who needed help, with no more authorization than their own moral compass. We need to understand their motivations, declared Zorath. No species acts without benefit to themselves. They must want something. Our diplomatic team is en route to this new Geneva station, reported Trilux. We will open formal negotiations with these humans and determine their price. As are our trade representatives, added Zorath. If they have been conducting rescue operations without compensation, they must be accumulating massive debt. The hegemony is prepared to offer favorable trade agreements in exchange for exclusive rescue services. The collective is also sending envoys, announced the mechanical voice. We wish to study their rescue methodologies for possible adaptation to our own protocols. Meanwhile, aboard the human cargo ship Defiant Spirit, Captain Veltar was experiencing culture shock of an entirely different kind. The medical bay where her crew was recovering looked nothing like the sterile regulation facilities of Zephyrian ships. Human medical equipment appeared to be a mixture of standard devices and improvised solutions, all functioning perfectly despite violating every design protocol she knew. "How are you feeling?" asked Dr. Vasquez, checking on Turnix's recovery. "Much better, thank you," the young Zephyrian replied. "But I must ask, why did you help us? What does your government gain from this rescue?" Dr. Vasquez looked confused. "The government? They don't even know we're out here. This is a private cargo ship, not a military vessel. But surely you have authorization for rescue operations, special training, emergency response certification?" "Turnix," Dr. Vasquez said gently. "I'm a cargo ship medic. Marcus is a freight engineer. Tom flies shipping routes. We're not special rescue people. We're just people." This revelation shocked Turnix more than anything else he had experienced. "You mean any human ship would have responded to our distress call?" "Well, any ship close enough to help, sure. That's what you do when people are in trouble." In the ship's common area, Veltar was having a similar conversation with Captain Chen. "You must understand my confusion, Captain. In Zephyrian space, emergency response is a specialized government function. Civilian vessels are not equipped or authorized for rescue operations." "That seems inefficient," Sarah replied, pouring herself a cup of coffee from a machine that appeared to be held together with spare parts. "What if a government ship isn't available when someone needs help? Then the situation is evaluated to determine if emergency authorization can be granted for civilian assistance. The process typically takes several days." Sarah nearly choked on her coffee. "Several days? What if people die while you're evaluating? That is considered an acceptable risk in order to maintain proper safety protocols and resource allocation." "Acceptable to who?" Veltar found she had no good answer for that question. In her society, it was simply accepted that proper procedure was more important than individual lives. The greater good required careful management of resources and risk. "Captain Chen, may I ask about your history? How did humans develop such unusual rescue practices?" Sarah thought for a moment. "I guess it started with life on Earth. When someone falls through ice on a frozen lake, you don't form a committee to decide if saving them is cost-effective. You grab a rope and pull them out. When there's a fire, people run toward it to help, not away from it to file reports. But surely there must be some humans who refuse to help, who demand payment or authorization. Of course there are. Humans aren't perfect, but most of us were raised to believe that helping others is just what you do. My grandmother used to say that the measure of a civilization isn't how well it treats its powerful members, but how it treats those who have nothing to offer in return." Veltar found this concept both beautiful and incomprehensible. In her society, value was carefully calculated and exchanges were precisely balanced. The idea of helping someone who could offer nothing in return violated fundamental principles of resource management. "We are approaching New Geneva Station," announced Tom from the bridge. "Looks like we have company. I'm reading several large ships in dock. Hegemony, Federation, and collective markings." "They got here fast," Sarah observed. "They want to understand what happened," Veltar explained, "and probably to negotiate exclusive agreements with your species." "Exclusive agreements for what?" "Rescue services. Each major power will want to ensure that humans respond to their emergencies first before helping others." Sarah laughed, a sound that confused Veltar. "Captain, I don't think they understand humans very well. We help whoever needs it, not whoever pays the most." As the defiant spirit approached New Geneva Station, Veltar realized she was about to witness something unprecedented in galactic history. The major powers of the galaxy were about to negotiate with a species that operated on completely different principles than any they had encountered before. She wondered which side would be more surprised by the outcome. New Geneva Station was nothing like what Captain Veltar had expected. Instead of the sterile, regulated environment of major galactic facilities, she found herself in what could only be described as organized chaos. The station buzzed with activity, as ships from dozens of species docked alongside human vessels. Cargo was being transferred, passengers were disembarking, and everywhere she looked, beings who should have been enemies were conducting business together. "Is it always this busy?" she asked Captain Chen as they walked through the main concourse. "Pretty much," Sarah replied, dodging a floating cargo platform operated by what appeared to be a methane-breathing species. New Geneva is a free port. Anyone can dock here, trade here, or just stop for supplies. No political restrictions, no territorial disputes. Just commerce and conversation. But how do you handle diplomatic conflicts? Surely some of these species are at war with each other. Station rules are simple, Sarah explained, pointing to a large sign in multiple languages. No weapons, no fighting, no politics. You want to have a war, do it somewhere else. You want to buy engine parts or grab a meal, welcome aboard. As they walked, Veltar noticed something extraordinary. In one of the station's common areas, children from various species were playing together under the supervision of adults who clearly weren't all the same race. A young hegemony citizen was sharing a meal with what looked like a Federation family. Two species she knew were in active territorial disputes were calmly negotiating a shipping contract. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "What do you mean?" "All of this. These species mixing freely, cooperation without formal treaties, children playing together across cultural boundaries. In the rest of the galaxy, such interactions require months of negotiation and diplomatic oversight." Sarah shrugged. "People are people, Captain. Give them a safe place to meet and they'll usually find common ground. Kids especially don't care about politics. They just want to play." They were interrupted by a commotion near the main docking bay. Through the observation windows, Veltar could see 3 massive ships bearing the insignia of the major galactic powers. Diplomatic shuttles were already launching from each vessel. "Looks like your people have arrived," Sarah observed. "They are not my people," Veltar corrected. "The Zephyrian Exploration Service is an independent organization. But yes, the major powers have come to negotiate with humanity." "Should be interesting," Sarah said with a slight smile. "Come on, let's get your crew settled in the medical center. Dr. Peterson will want to do full examinations to make sure everyone's recovery is progressing well." The New Geneva Medical Center was another revelation for Veltar. Instead of the specialized facilities she expected, she found a collection of treatment rooms designed to accommodate the biological needs of dozens of different species. Human doctors worked alongside alien medical specialists, sharing knowledge and techniques with casual efficiency. "Captain Veltar," a human doctor approached them. "I'm Dr. Peterson. I've been reviewing the medical reports from Dr. Vasquez. Your crew is doing remarkably well, considering what they've been through. Will there be any long-term effects from the emergency treatment they received? Actually, I'd like you to meet someone who can answer that better than I can." Dr. Peterson gestured to a figure approaching from one of the treatment rooms. "This is Dr. Yithtal, our Zephyrian medical consultant." Veltar stared in shock. The approaching figure was indeed Zephyrian, but wore human medical clothing and moved with the casual confidence of someone completely at home in their environment. "Captain Veltar," Dr. Yithtal said in their native language, "it is an honor to meet a fellow explorer. I have been working with human medical teams for 3 years now. Your crew received excellent care. You work here? Permanently? I came here initially as a patient like your crew. My research vessel suffered catastrophic failure in an ion storm. A human cargo ship rescued us, brought us to New Geneva for treatment. When I recovered, I asked if I could stay and contribute to their medical efforts. And they simply allowed this? Without diplomatic clearance or formal agreements? They said they could use the help, Dr. Yithtal replied. It has been the most rewarding work of my career. We treat patients from across the galaxy here, regardless of their species or ability to pay. While Veltar tried to process this information, the diplomatic meetings were beginning in the station's conference facilities. The representatives of the three major galactic powers had arrived with full ceremonial entourages, expecting formal negotiations with human government officials. Instead, they found themselves sitting across from station manager Janet Reyes, a practical woman in work clothes who looked like she had just come from inspecting cargo holds. "Welcome to New Geneva," Janet said cheerfully. "I understand you want to talk about rescue services." High Administrator Zorath of the Hegemony leaned forward, his metallic voice carrying the weight of authority. "Manager Reyes, we are here to negotiate exclusive emergency response agreements with the human government. Our preliminary offer includes favorable trade terms, territorial concessions, and technology exchanges worth trillions of credits." Janet blinked. "I'm sorry, exclusive agreements for what?" "Rescue services," explained Ambassador Trilux of the Federation. "We require assurance that human vessels will prioritize Federation emergencies over those of other powers." "Oh, I see the confusion," Janet said, looking genuinely sympathetic. "You think we're a government organization. We're not. New Geneva is a free port operated by a private consortium. The rescue services you're talking about aren't official policy. They're just what people do. But surely your government can issue directives to human vessels about emergency response priorities." "Which government?" Janet asked. "Earth, Mars? The Outer Colony Alliance? Human space isn't unified the way yours is. We have dozens of different governments and most of our ships are privately owned." The alien representatives exchanged confused glances. In their experience, spacefaring civilizations required strong central authority to coordinate resources and maintain order. "Then how do you coordinate rescue operations?" asked the collective representative. "We don't," Janet replied. "When someone needs help, whoever's closest responds. It's not complicated. But without central coordination, how do you ensure efficient resource allocation? How do you prevent conflicts between competing rescue operations? Usually there's only one ship close enough to help," Janet explained patiently. "When there are multiple ships, they coordinate on the spot. Captains talk to each other and figure out the best approach. Without higher authority? Without formal command structure? Look," Janet said, her patience beginning to show strain. "If your house was on fire, would you want the fire department to stop and call a committee meeting to decide who should rescue you?" The question left the alien diplomats speechless. In their societies, emergency response was indeed a matter for committees and formal approval processes. "We are prepared to offer substantial compensation for exclusive rescue agreements," Zorath pressed. "Surely individual human captains can be incentivized to prioritize certain clients." "You want to pay people not to rescue someone?" Janet's expression hardened. "Ambassador, I don't think you understand humans very well." Several hours later, Veltar found herself on the station's observation deck, watching the diplomatic shuttles return to their ships. The negotiations had apparently not gone as the major powers had expected. "How did the meetings go?" she asked Janet, who had joined her at the viewing window. "About as well as expected," Janet replied with a wry smile. "They wanted to buy exclusive rights to human rescue services. I tried to explain that it doesn't work that way." "And their response?" "They think we're lying. They can't believe that any species would help others without expecting something in return. They're convinced we have some secret agenda." "Perhaps they will understand in time," Veltar said hopefully. "Maybe. But understanding isn't the same as accepting. The galaxy has operated on certain principles for thousands of years. We're challenging those assumptions just by existing." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the great ships of the galactic powers begin their departure. But Veltar noticed that not all the diplomatic vessels were leaving. Several smaller ships remained docked, and she could see individual representatives making their way back to the station. "Some of them are staying," she observed. "The smart ones," Janet agreed. "They want to see how this place really works. How we handle disputes, coordinate services, maintain security without a central authority." They're starting to realize that maybe there's another way to do things. And will you teach them? We'll show them, Janet corrected. You can't teach people to be helpful. You can only demonstrate what's possible when everyone decides to try. Later that evening, Veltar sat in one of the station's recreational areas, watching something she had never thought possible. Her crew members were playing a complex game with humans, hegemony citizens, and even a few Federation representatives who had chosen to remain. The language barriers were overcome with universal translators and patient explanation. Cultural differences became sources of curiosity rather than conflict. Captain Chen found her there, holding a cup of something that smelled remarkably like Zephyrian tea.